Hello and welcome to this my video on factorizing by grouping. My name is Darren from Maths Guru. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully these videos are useful. If they are, do me a favor, tell your mates, tell your teacher. Hopefully people out there will watch my videos, which sort of leads me into my next point. Can you do me a massive favor? Very few people watch videos. If I was to make videos of me eating crisps or ASMR things, or I don't know, me doing Fortnite, and yes, I'm on Twitch, not doing Fortnite, then basically I think I'd have a lot more subscribers. But oh well, other than my mother and maybe my dog, not too many people watch. If you can just click on subscribe on Maths Guru on YouTube, that'd be greatly appreciated. And also head over to mathsguru.com. Signing up is absolutely free for you guys, and there are videos and there are downloadable notes and there are exam questions and so much more to come. It's all over there for you. Now, normally at this point I would read over the learning objectives, but I don't need to do that, do I? Because you guys can read and pause the video if you need to. But it's building on a lot of the work we did previously in the last few videos. I think this is something like the 5th video in this particular series. Now, when I look at my previous stuff that we've done, and normally I talk about the algebra behind what we've done, but there is a point to all of this, in that everything we are doing with this factorization stuff has something to do with curves, and they are special types of curves. So any equation that has an x squared in it is basically what we call a quadratic or a parabola. A lot of people go, well, what's a parabola? Well, you use it probably all of the time if you play tennis or soccer, or I would say AFL, but that ball is random and doesn't really go in ways that you would imagine. But generally speaking, anything that goes like this is a parabola, all right? And so where it goes up. Now, these things are symmetrical around the middle. They have highest points and minimum points and all that type of stuff, but don't really want to get too deep into that. But what we begin to notice is that if we can get it into this form here, factorized form, then we notice that there's actually some relationship between that plus 2 there and the fact that this seems to cross at minus 2. And there is a relationship between a negative 3 there and the fact that it crosses there at positive 3. And in the previous video, we looked at the idea of we could also have it in a particular format that helped me find that point there, which was our minimum point in this situation. And so there is a reason behind all of this. It has something to do with graphs, which we deal with a lot more later on in year 9. But let's get back to this. Now, basically, we have a bit of a problem, because 3 things can't really be factorized very nicely or in a useful way. I mean, we can absolutely factorize them. So if I look at x squared plus 5x plus 6, at this moment in time, if I was to look at the first 2 terms, for example, I could possibly take out an x. That's going to give me x plus 5 plus 6. But where do we go with that? Well, nowhere really. It's not particularly helpful to me, because what we've just decided a minute ago was that I need to get this into 2 sets of brackets, a bracket multiplied by a bracket. And if I can do that, then I can sketch some graphs and life is good. But as I say, we can't factorize 3 things very nicely, but we can factorize 4 things. So what if we could split this middle thing here, if I could split that 5x into 2 other things, such that I had an x squared, I had something, and then another x term, and plus 6. Well, then I would have 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe then we could do a little bit of factorizing then. Likewise, if I could split this minus 2x into something, and this negative x into something, then life becomes a lot easier. Right, so we're building ourselves onto the next video, but this one here is going to sort of show you the middle step. Hold on a moment, we've met this before, haven't we? Now, I've taken a screenshot of the Cambridge questions. Thank you very much, Cambridge, for allowing me to use your work examples. Being a bit cheeky with this one, I've taken some of your questions out of the book, but just to show that students, if they're following the Cambridge course, will have done questions like this, and to be perfectly honest with you, any textbook. We've noticed that we can actually take questions like this and factorize them, because factorizing is just taking outside the set of brackets that which is common, the highest common factor. So if I had 4 brackets x plus 3 plus x in brackets x plus 3, how many terms have we got? Well, I've got 1 term, and I've got another term here. All right, okay. Is there anything common to both of those terms? Well, yes, there's a set of brackets with x plus 3. Well, okay. Well, then we can divide both terms by x plus 3. Which means that if I'm using the idea of factorization, that I can take outside of a set of brackets the x plus 3, because that's effectively what I'm doing with the highest common factor. And then when I cancel, what do I get left? Well, the x plus 3 and the x plus 3 becomes 1 on 1. X plus 3 on x plus 3 become 1 on 1, because anything divided by itself is 1. And what do we get left with on the top? I get 4 times 1 on the top. So there is my 4. And I get plus x times 1 there. So I'm going to get plus x. Aha! And so basically what I've done there is I have turned this, I know what you say, that question there into a pair of binomial products. And I just said a moment ago that when we have binomial products, we can actually do something with them to get us those crossing points on the x-axis. So if we can get a question and make it look like that, then obviously this here would be my next step. Building it up. Right, so the trick to all of these questions is basically you are going to factorize twice. And you're going to say, didn't we do that in the previous lesson? Yes, because in many cases, that's what all of this is about. You factorize, and then you factorize again. And again, it probably makes sense to look at examples. So let's do this example here. First things first, ask yourself a question. Does it have 3 terms? No. Awesome. It has 4 terms. Lovely. And so what I can now do is factorize pairs. I'm going to take a pair and then another pair of these, and I'm going to factorize them. So let's do equals, changing my pen color. I've got x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm only going to look at the first 2 pairs here, and I'm going to factorize just those. I'm going to take out the maximum I possibly can. Right, well, is there a number I can factorize? No. Is there a letter? Yes. I'm going to take out an x. There's a set of brackets. X times x gives me x squared. X times what gives me plus 2x? Well, it's got to be plus 2, hasn't it? And there we go. Now, having done the first pair, I'm now going to repeat it with the second pair. I'm going to factorize those. Now, what is the most I can take out of? Plus 3x and plus 6. Now, I always make it clear about the plus. So what can I take out? Well, the maximum will be plus 3. And there's my set of brackets. All right, so plus 3 times what gives me plus 3x? Well, it's going to be x. Plus 3 times what gives me plus 6? It would have to be plus 2. Hold on a moment. That now looks very similar to these type of questions, because if I go back, what do I notice? I've got 2 terms, both of which now have an x plus 2 in it. And that actually is the sort of first check to make sure you've done these questions right. If those 2 brackets do not hold exactly the same thing, you have made a mistake. And that's where you sort of go, oh, hold on a moment, I've made a mistake. But I factorized once, so there was my first factorizing. Now I'm going to factorize again. Because what do I notice is common to both of those terms? X plus 2. So I now notice that x plus 2 and the x plus 2 in the brackets are common. So I'm going to write that outside a set of brackets. And what do I get left? Well, again, if I divide the x plus 2, I get just the x left. And if I divide this by the x plus 2, I get plus 3 left. And ka-ching, I suddenly have it in my binomial product form, or my factorized form. I have turned 4 terms into 2 terms, and then into my binomial form. Oh my goodness. And again, I say this over and over again. This stuff takes lots and lots of practice, right? The more you do, the more you will get sort of to see the shortcuts and what have you. So here we go again. Let's do another example. I've got x squared plus 3x minus 5x minus 15. So let's do it. Let's do the first pair first. So we've got 4 terms. That means we can factorize by grouping, and the reason we're calling it grouping is because I'm grouping by doing a pair at a time. So I'm going to do the first 2 first. Let's see what we've got. What's the maximum that can come out of that? Well, I've got x squared plus 3x, so I'm going to take an x out. And so we've got x times x and plus 3 again. If you're not sure why, x times x gives me x squared. X times plus 3 gives me plus 3x. Now, this is where the next part of the question gets a bit tricky. It confuses people. Remember, that is minus 5x minus 15. It's very important that that sign there belongs to the number in front of the x. So now, let's see. What can I take out? Now, lots of people in this situation will go, well, I'll take out 5. Okay, so if I take out positive 5 and draw a set of brackets, positive 5 times what will give me negative 5x. Oh, well, that would have to be negative x. And automatically I see I've got a problem, because as I said to you a moment ago, the way you know this is working and that you are going to be correct is what is inside this bracket must match exactly what is inside that bracket. And actually it isn't. So taking positive 5 out is actually wrong, because I'm going to have to take out negative 5. All right, so negative 5 times what gives me negative 5x? Well, that would have to be x. And again, this is where people fall over because they get their signs wrong. Minus 5 times what gives me minus 15? Well, a minus times what gives me a minus? So that would have to be a plus. And 5 times what gives me 15? It's got to be 3. So now I'm going to check. Are my insides of my brackets the same? X plus 3 and x plus 3, yes. So I have already factorized. I've now got to factorize again. All right, okay, we can do this. Right, what do we notice is common? Well, I've got 2 terms. I've turned 4 terms into 2 terms, and each of them share that x plus 3. So the x plus 3 moves outside a set of brackets. And what do we get left? Well, if the x plus 3 disappears from here, I've got x. So that becomes x. And if the x plus 3 disappears from there, I get left minus 5. And again, I have now factorized. The world's gone crazy. Yay! Right, any more examples? They look harder, but are they harder? Probably not. So again, ask yourself the question, how many terms do I have? I've got 4 terms. So what I'm now going to do is try and group. I've got 3ab plus 5bc plus 3ad plus 5cd. All right, so let's try now factorize grouping. There's my first 2. There's my next 2. So let's go back and see what we can do. So if we do the first 2, let's look at the numbers first. Highest thing that can come out of 3 and 5, it would be 1, no good to me. Do I have an A in? No, but I have a B. So the first thing I'm going to do there is I'm going to move out the letter B and do a set of brackets. Well, if the B is moved outside, that B is no longer there, leaving me with the 3A. And again, if you backtrack it or just check, B times 3A is 3AB. I'm going to do plus. Well, if that B is no longer there because it's got cancelled out, we'll be left with just a 5C. And there's my 5C. Whew. What do I take out of the next one? What common? Well, no, nothing for numbers. There's an A in the first one, but not in the second one. There's an D in the first one and a D in the second one. So I'm going to take out plus D in this situation, close my brackets. Let me see, the D's gone missing. What do I get left with? 3A. How do I know I'm doing the right thing? Because this was a 3A. And there's a 3A, so I'm almost there. Now again, don't shortcut it. Don't just write down plus 5C and hope. Check, because we can always try and trick you that some of these won't be able to be factorized. So let me see, the D goes missing from there. It leaves me with a plus 5C. So I'm going to write plus 5C there. And, I've gone from I've done from 4 terms to 2 terms. So I factorized, and I'm going to factorize again. So let me see, what can I take out? Well, I can see that the 3A plus 5C in brackets is common. Well, if that disappears, I've got the B left. And if that disappears or is factorized out, I get plus D. And there we go. And it doesn't matter that it's got letters in, because we can put letters in to try and confuse you to see whether you've understood or whether you're regurgitating. Now, again, there are examples here that are going to try and trick you, because the order of these things is sort of important. What you'll notice here is I've actually moved the order around. We normally have, whenever we do these questions, we normally have the x squared term, we have some sort of x term, we have some sort of x term, and then we have some sort of a number term. And in this situation, we're messing with you. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite that question as 2x squared minus 14x plus x minus 7. Let's see where we go with this one. So again, remember, factorize in pairs. The first 2 pairs, and then the next 2 pairs. Let's see what we come up with. What's the maximum we can take out of 2x squared minus 14x? So let's look at our numbers first. 2 seems to come out, so there's a 2. I've got x squared and an x, so I can take one of those x's out. And let's close some brackets. 2x times what gives me 2x squared? It's got to be x. 2x times what gives me minus 14? Ah, negative 7. Right, what's the factorization here? Well, plus x minus 7. Well, let's look at the numbers first. There's a 1 in front of there and a minus 7. So, yeah, any letters? Nah. So actually in this situation, I can take out positive 1. And I know in lots of the previous questions we go, you don't need to worry about the 1. In this situation, you do. So if I take plus 1 out, plus 1 times what gives me x? That's going to be x. Plus 1 times what gives me minus 7, it's going to be minus 7. So I'm realistically writing that whole thing in brackets. But what do I notice? I have factorized the first time. Can I factorize again? Do I have anything common? I got an x minus 7 there. I've got an x minus 7. So that, therefore, must be common. So I can actually take that out of a set of brackets, leaving me with, well, if that goes, I've got 2x left. And if that goes, I've got plus 1 left. And lo and behold, that wasn't much of a trick, really, was it? All right, but what about if I have, like, all these things here? Well, this is a great example, but again, it doesn't matter. In previous videos, we showed that it doesn't matter how many terms you have, so long as they all have a common factor. You can move the common factor out. So let's work along my terms. Do you notice anything the same? Well, yeah, I've got an a minus 4 in brackets there, an a minus 4 in brackets there, and an a minus 4 in brackets there, which means I can take out the a minus 4 out of a set of brackets. And again, what happens? That a minus 4 gets cancelled out. I'm left with a 3. That a minus 4 is cancelled out. I get left with a negative x. And that a minus 4 there cancels out and I get negative y. And I'm done. Yeah, and again, it doesn't matter that I've got 3 things inside that brackets there. Okay, to be fair though, this wouldn't be a graph that we would be willingly wanting to draw, but it's just the same idea. It's an algebra trick. And believe it or not, that is the end of another video. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you can. Head over to Maths Guru, sign up, download these notes, write all over them, put them in your summary book. Tell your mates, tell your teachers, and just hopefully enjoy the maths. There are more videos coming in this series. Hopefully I'll see you in one of them. If not, please take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.